The Election of 1860 by Giovanny Padilla, Joseph Penaflor, Lionel Merida, and Mario Terrazas.
Essential question. What conflicts do people of different cultures and backgrounds experience?
What made it so big? The raid on Harper Ferry by John Brown was a major setback for the Union. Union was worried that this raid will further divide the North from the South, led to the Civil War.
The candidates. Abraham Lincoln was a Republican and went for anti-slavery. John C. Breckinridge was Southern Democratic and went for pro-slavery. Stephen A. Douglas was Northern Democratic and went for anti-slavery. John Bell was in the Constitutional Union and took no position on slavery.
Lincoln nominated and elected. Republicans nominated Abraham Lincoln. The Republicans' design to get voters from many quarters was that slavery should be left alone where it existed. Lincoln won a majority of the electoral votes of 180 out of 360 votes. He received 40% of the popular vote. Lincoln was not ballot for the Confederate States. His name didn't appear on the ballot in most southern states, but had won in every state in the North.
This is a poster of Abraham Lincoln and his vice president, Hannibal Hamlin. This is a map of the majority of votes for the presidents. As you can see, Breckinridge was usually on the south side, which he was pro-slavery, and Lincoln was on the north side, which was anti-slavery.
What happened after? Southern states had a convention in South Carolina to secede. Secede means to withdraw or removed by federal union. Southerners wanted to be as their own country, not with America. The Southern people considered themselves as Confederates. During this time, President Buchanan was still on his presidential term. He said the Southern states had no right to secede, but he also has no power to stop them.
Fort Sumter. Abraham Lincoln gave his inaugural speech. It did not contain too much Mr. Big Guy, but had a peaceful way of saying it. Confederate states took over some forts in the northern states. Lincoln did not want a war, but if he continued to stop, he would admit that the Confederate states had the right to secede. Lincoln got a message that Fort Sumter was low on supplies, so he sent soldiers and men to the fort. Confederates attacked the fort, and then Lincoln sent 75,000 troops. This attack started the Civil War.
This is our video.
The first thing to know about the election of 1860 is that there were actually four candidates and two presidential campaigns, actually. The candidates were John Bell of Tennessee, a member of the Constitutional Union Party, John Breckinridge of Kentucky, a member of the southern half of the fractured Democrat Party, Stephen Douglas of Illinois, a North Democrat, and lastly, you guessed it, Abraham Lincoln, also of Illinois, a Republican. Now, Abraham Lincoln was nominated because he was a talented speaker, had a moderate position on slavery, and was a Westerner who could mount a challenge to Douglas. In Illinois, he was already a respected politician. During the actual presidential campaign, Lincoln, like almost every candidate before him since George Washington, used the front porch campaign, which is to say, he didn't leave his hometown or make any new speeches, though he still saw hundreds of visitors. Douglas, on the other hand, was the first presidential candidate to go on a nationwide speaking tour. He was an extremely strong advocate of the Union, and during his lengthy tours in the South, he spent a lot of time arguing for it. Now, as I said previously, there were two presidential campaigns, one in the North and one in the South. In the North, the primary rivals were Abraham Lincoln and Stephen Douglas. In the South, it was Douglas, Bell, and Breckinridge. This was largely because there was little to no Republican influence in the South, and the Republicans didn't bother to campaign much there anyway, never going past the border states. When all was said and done, Lincoln emerged the clear victor of the electoral votes, earning 180 of them. He carried all of the North, except for New Jersey, and 1.8 million votes, 54% of the regional total, and 40% of the national one. Breckinridge carried a majority of the slave states, and Bell carried 3 upper South states, but 40% of the Southern vote as a whole. Douglas placed only first in Missouri, but he ends up second in the popular votes at 1.3 million. He was the only candidate with across-the-board support, but his failure to carry either side suggested that a political career based on devotion to the Union was no longer possible, which was actually a good example of foreshadowing for the Civil War. Lincoln becomes the 16th president of the United States of America without a single vote in 10 southern states, largely thanks to the North's superior size and population. As a result, this leads to heightened tensions between the North and the South, with the South feeling as though the man elected to office is hostile to their very values and interests. In the months after Lincoln's election, 7 states seceded from the Union for reasons solely concerning slavery, beginning the split of the Union and setting the country on the road to civil war.
This is our bibliography.